it kind of feels like when the Big East was around, and they were out there trying to, find any team that was a warm body, and you ended up with you got to keep your BCS bid or whatever it was, but you ended up with South Florida and Cincinnati and all those teams, and everybody knew that thing was going to fall apart pretty quickly and was going to be the worst of the conferences, which is what it was. So to me, I feel like when you look at this, I just don't know that this is really going to be a good thing.
It intrigues me for a couple different reasons. One, bringing in Houston kind of seems like a no-brainer since pretty much half the conference is already based out of the state of Texas, at least a good chunk of it. But at the same time, it intrigues me because BYU, Cincinnati, and UCF as football additions are really useful, especially when UCF's got Gus Malzahn down there, and that could be a big boon for that program. On the other side of it, it intrigues me in basketball because Houston, of course, has been a pretty successful program. They were a strong team last year. UCF was a team that was kind of on the rise, and Cincinnati pretty much are what they are on the college basketball standpoint. So it does intrigue me a bit, but I'm with you. I'm curious to see what the long-term ramifications are because when you lose Texas and Oklahoma, you lose a lot of star power. You're talking about one program that's a national brand in Oklahoma and another one that was so powerful in Texas that it had its own network. So now when you lose that luster with those two programs combined, that's a big set of shoes that you got to fill. And we'll see how this goes, especially with West Virginia. I think the one comforting thing West Virginia is they at least have one opponent they can actually get to, riding on a bus instead of on a plane. Getting to Cincinnati is not that big of a deal, but that's beside the point.
I think for their footprint purposes, Memphis made more sense than Central Florida.
See, Memphis was a name that came up with our producers. We were talking about this earlier in the day, and it feels weird that Memphis is going to be a team that's left out because I agree. Memphis, especially from the basketball standpoint, makes a lot more sense because Penny Hardaway was doing his thing in Memphis. So, yeah, I think that's a definitely missed opportunity.
I mean, but again, their football program won the, whatever that is, the American Conference
True.
USA, Big East, whatever the hell it's called nowadays. They won that, I think, 2 years ago. So, I mean, it's not like Memphis's football team is bad. And to me, you have a footprint. You have a little bit closer, I don't want to say rival, but at least you have a little closer team for West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And I don't really know what you gain by having Central Florida. You're still getting the fourth team at best in Florida. I don't know that you're going to go down there and recruit just because you got Central Florida in your conference. I just don't see there's a lot of benefits of Central Florida other than a couple of years ago they were, 13-0 or whatever.
They claimed the national championship, Paul. That means something. Just saying. 412-575-2600 on the Borders and Borders hotline. We got Rico in Moon Township. Rico, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Josh, listen, two things. First of all, I think the Steelers are not going to be a very good team this year. And I just want to say, Paul has become a right-wing nut on his Twitter. You should read it.
Thanks for calling, Rico. Let's deal with the Steelers question. We've seen a bit. It seems like there's not really a lot of down-the-middle predictions for the Steelers. It's either 11 wins, 11 losses, maybe 10 wins, 10 losses. I'm probably in that 10-win boat. But where do you stand here, Paul, as far as possible prediction of record for the Steelers in the season?
Well, I mean, first of all, that Rico with his fake voice, I could have told you where that was going. I mean, because I do a chat with the Post-Gazette every week, and there's somebody named Rico. He chimes in and just tries to be a troll. So that was, I guess, somebody that reads my. That guy's somebody who reads my chat, and not surprisingly doesn't have a date on a Friday night and is at home and can now prank call the show. But
he's a fan.
That being said, I think the Steelers are. What's that?
He's a fan. Take it as a compliment.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, he's a fan of the chat, right? But again, like I said, he as I always say, Josh, he made that phone call right after he said, "Mom, the meatloaf." But anyway, the bottom line is, I like the Steelers to go 9-8, maybe 10-7. I don't know though. The offensive line is starting to worry me.
That's the deciding factor for me is the offensive line. Can they actually? It's not even protecting Ben Roethlisberger for me because I think you and I have seen enough in the past few years that he knows either A, how to get the ball out quickly, or B, how to at least extend the play long enough to get the ball out clean and not having to worry about the protection around him. That doesn't concern me as much. The question for me is, can they establish a running game consistently? Can they get enough push up front to establish a running game and then make Ben's job a little bit easier by setting up play action, because there are more and more teams in the league now that are being successful doing that. They're able to establish the run, they're setting up play action, or allowing them to go down the field and make plays that way. I think in Matt Canada's offense, some of that pressure comes off of the offensive line. Whether or not it translates that way over 17 games, and that 17th game does play a factor, because as much as people like to talk about Mike Tomlin never having a losing season, this year it's going to be losing season or otherwise. It's going to be one or the other. So that's another kind of wrinkle in the whole situation. But yeah, I'm convinced that the thing that we will look at the most is going to be the offensive line and whether or not we see the results that we're expecting. Before we take a break, we got Sean on the line. Sean, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Yeah, I was wondering your opinion on Juju Smith about his milk crate challenge here. I think he needs a mother and father figure there to keep an eye on him. What do you think about that?
Well, he has a mom and dad, so I mean, let's get something perfectly clear. I don't know any grown person, whether athlete, non-athlete, famous or not famous, that didn't do something that people could force them to stop doing. Juju is going to do stuff like this. He's going to make these kind of decisions. He's going to do stuff that's probably seen on social media. He's going to do things like this. I don't think a soul in the world can rein him in. It would take something like that particular situation going wrong to change his mind. And until that happens, it's not going to change his mind. Paul?
Well, I mean, he does stuff like that for attention, and he does it for his brand or whatever. He's basically saying, look at me, which is great. If that's what he wants to do and that's the direction he wants to go, I'm okay with it. But what bothers me is if that's what he wants to do for attention, when he gets attention and it happens to be people criticizing him, then, you know, you got to live with that as well. So to me, I just think Juju, we talk way too much about him. You know, he is what he is. He's a young guy who's trying to, you know, build a brand. Fine, have at it. But when you do dumb things, don't be surprised when people call it, you know, basically criticize you for it. And if you're okay with that, then continue to do dumb things.
I've always heard, I should say always heard, but I've heard this analogy once and it stuck out with me. Attention is like a door, but you can't treat it like a screen. Once it's open, whatever's going to come in is going to come in. But you can't block some of the other stuff that wants to come in out. That's pretty much what it is. As long as he keeps that door wide open, the attention, both negative and positive, is going to continue to go back and forth in his direction. Got to take another break. We're wrapping up when we come back. Stick around.